Meanwhile, more than 600,000 illegal immigrants have been deported by ICE, with another 1.9 million self-deporting. Joining me now in this Sunday Morning Futures exclusive is White House border czar Tom Homan. Tom, great to have you this morning. Welcome.
Good morning.
How would you assess the president's work on securing this border so far in 2025?
Unprecedented. Nothing like this in the history of the country. Look, we got the most secure border in the history of this nation. The most secure ever. And that's based on real data. I just came back. I just did a border review in San Diego, Texas, and Arizona. I toured the border by air, by boat, and by four-wheel drive. 3 days on the southern border, Maria. I didn't see a single illegal alien. And I've been doing this since 1984, even back when I was in Border Patrol. 3 days, a single illegal alien in my sights. It's the most secure border ever, and by doing that, as you said, it's down 95%. How many aliens aren't dying making that journey? How many pounds of fentanyl aren't getting in and killing Americans? How many known suspected terrorists are not crossing that border because the Border Patrol is 100% vigilant on that line, stopping all the entries? It's incredible. Never seen anything like it in my 40-year career.
Well, that is incredible. But, you know, we also have to take a look at what went on under Joe Biden and the 4 years of the Biden administration and that wide open border. There were people who came in during the Biden years and actually have continued to commit crimes. How significant is that right now, given the fact that these news stories of the last couple of weeks have people dying at the hands of illegals?
Well, look, it's extremely significant. I said for 4 years during the Biden administration on this very network that what he created is the biggest national security failure in the history of this nation. Because we know they weren't vetting people properly. I said it over and over again. When Secretary Mayorkas is saying all these people were released, the millions have been properly vetted, you can't say that. We don't have access to other countries' criminal data.
Right.
El Salvador doesn't have an NCIC. Some of these countries like China and Russia, where thousands of those people came across, do you actually think they're going to share any national security data with us? So they weren't properly vetted. We didn't have access to that information.
Yeah, and yet Democrats still fight President Trump, and they try to stop his agenda. What about all these attacks on ICE? What is the status of that right now? Because I know that Democrats do not want to follow the law when it comes to the border protection.
Again, the threats against ICE are up over 8,000%. Actual assaults are like 1,300%.
Wow.
So again, never seen anything like this in my life. And but the good thing is, Department of Justice under Pam Bondi is prosecuting at record numbers for violations 18 U.S.C. 111, which is impeding, interference, putting hands on an ICE officer. So I looked at the numbers the other day. I've never seen so many prosecutions in my life. So we're sending a strong message. There is zero consequence. You put a hand on an ICE officer. If you interfere with an ICE officer, you'll get a set of handcuffs, and you're going to go to jail, and you're going to be federally prosecuted. So I wish they'd just stop. I did a speech from the board the other day. I wish the rhetoric, the hateful rhetoric from congressmen, mayors, and governors would stop, because I said it back in March. There's going to be bloodshed. Unfortunately, there has been bloodshed. I don't want more bloodshed, but unless they stop doing what they're doing, there will be more, and I worry about that every day.
Well, these are also federal judges, Tom. Let's face it. There was a Milwaukee County judge found guilty of obstructing federal immigration agents in a courthouse incident. You know the story. I mean, how much of that is there out there right now, where there are people in powerful positions like federal judges trying to stop President Trump's agenda, even though it's the will of the people?
That's clear what I just said. You cross the line, you'll be prosecuted. Zero tolerance. There's going to be consequences. So even if you're a judge, there are consequences for violating the law. So, that's a clear example of some of the radical judges who want to, constantly rule against us because they've been radicalized. They don't believe in President Trump and his mission. Look, we attempted to remove hundreds of children to their homeland because the children want to be reunited with their parents. The parents wanted their children home. We had arrangements to send these children to Guatemala. We were sued, and a judge issued a stay saying we can't reunite these families. I want to mention one other thing. Just reported last week, 300,000 children went missing under Joe Biden. They weren't looking for them. They couldn't find them. So far, the Trump administration kept its promise to American people. They've already located 129,000 of these children, thanks to the work of FBI, DHS, and HHS.
That is incredible, Tom. Thank you so much for your efforts on that. Now, this morning you are coming to us from Arizona. You are going to be one of the leading speakers at the Turning Point USA conference and rally, AmFest, that is America's festival. Tell us the messages that you're going to send, because we were talking earlier about young people, and I know that this is something that I spoke also with Cardinal Dolan about. There has been a movement with young people moving to God, looking to religion. After all that we've seen in terms of Charlie Kirk's death and those most recent shootings, what can you tell us about young people today? What is your message at the Turning Point event this morning?
Well, I want to talk about, of course, I want to talk about successes of the President Trump administration, that we have the most secure border in history of the nation, which saves lives. Look, when 95% less people are coming, how many women aren't being sexually assaulted making that journey? How many children aren't dying making that journey? How many Americans aren't dying from drug overdoses? But most importantly, I want to talk to you because you're right. There's been a change. There's been an awakening of the younger folks. I look forward to talking eye to eye with them all over today because they are wakening up. I think what happened to Charlie Kirk has started a movement that can't be stopped. And I'm happy to be a part of that and educate these people on the truth. Not what you read in the media. I'm going to educate them on the truth of what President Trump's actually doing for this country.
Yeah, thank you for that, Tom. I actually witnessed it myself, been to the border 6 times, and I actually was there in the first term of President Trump and saw little girls walking hand in hand, crossing the border. It was dangerous. They were right there near the drug cartel leaders. It's just unbelievable. So thank you for your work. Merry Christmas to you, Tom. Thanks so much.
Merry Christmas.
All right, White House border czar Tom Homan, thank you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.